All right, welcome back and welcome to the very first edition of our RoboJoule 1K Club. The whole idea behind this series is to build automations and tools that can generate passive income. Now, there are tons of channels out there showing the usual cookie-cutter how-tos, but here we're going a bit deeper. I've been in this game for years, and one thing I've learned is that you should never rely on just one stream of income. That's exactly what this club is about. Diversifying your income with smart, sustainable strategies. So, if that sounds like your kind of thing, make sure to join us using the link below. All right, let's dive in. In this first edition, I'm going to show you how AI and automation can help you publish books on the KDP Marketplace. It's an amazing platform where you can publish your work and earn passive income over time. All right. So if you haven't heard of Amazon KDP before, do yourself a favor. Pause this video, head over to Google or YouTube and search for Amazon KDP. We all know how massive Amazon is and how much revenue they generate daily. But here's the cool part. It all started with books. And guess what? That hasn't really changed. Book sales are still going strong. There are tons of creators, including myself, who publish on Amazon KDP and earn monthly passive income. And I mean truly passive. Once the book is up, you can literally earn money while doing nothing. Take a scroll through the platform and check out some of the top creators. One of my personal favorites is Sean Dalwett. He's been in the game for years and has become a multi-millionaire just by selling books on Amazon. Pretty inspiring stuff. Now, you might be thinking, what do I know about writing books? And that's exactly where AI comes in. If you've got a cool idea, whether it's a children's storybook, which is one of my personal favorites, a guide on investment strategies, or anything related to your niche, you can turn that into a book. Or even multiple books. Upload them to Amazon, and boom, you're in the game. In this course, I'm going to show you how to automate most of that process. But here's the important part. We don't want to automate everything. That's the easy route, and frankly, it's what everyone else is doing. The real magic happens when we combine automation with intention. We're aiming for quality over quantity. AI is here to handle the grunt work and make our lives easier. But we still want to stay involved to ensure everything we publish is top-notch. That's how you stand out, stay relevant, and succeed long-term, while many others will fade out with low-effort content. Here's the workflow I'm going to share with you, and it's the exact same one I use when creating my own books for KDP. I've spent months developing and refining this process, improving it bit by bit as I go. And here's one key thing I've learned. You can't just tell a large language model, hey, write me a book on this topic, and expect it to spit out 5, 10, or even 20 coherent, well-connected stories. It's just too much information for one model to handle in one go. So what I've done is break the process down into multiple agents, each responsible for a specific task in the overall workflow. This modular approach keeps things organized and efficient. And most importantly, it produces much better results. To give you a clearer picture, let me show you what I mean with this diagram. All right, so first things first, we need a way to get our book idea into the system. That means creating a simple interface where we can input the concept and overall feel of the book and store that info in a database. Next up, we have our Research Leader agent. This agent dives into some background research and comes back with a list of story ideas and titles. Once we have those, each title is handed off to a story writer agent. These agents work independently, each crafting a unique story based on the assigned title. Now, once the stories are done, they're passed on to a prompt engineer agent. This agent reads each story and generates an image prompt for custom cover art tailored to that story. After that, we bring in a character extraction agent. This is important because from experience, I've noticed that large language models tend to reuse character names across stories. This agent helps us keep track of all characters to avoid repetition and maintain consistency. Then we've got two more agents, one that writes the book's introduction and another that crafts a solid conclusion to tie everything together. Once all that's done, we move to the image generation phase. Each story gets its own illustration based on the prompts we created earlier. Finally, we compile everything, stories, images, intro, and conclusion, into a Markdown file. Why Markdown? It's easy to manage and edit. We then convert that file into a Google Docs format and upload it to Google Drive or whichever platform you prefer. Personally, I send it to my Google Drive and email myself a link so I can easily access the document for any final tweaks or edits. Alright, so my usual process starts with mapping everything out just like we did in the chart. From there, I dive into the back end first. I make sure it's solid and working properly before touching the front end or anything the user actually sees. Now let's quickly walk through this one. We begin with a webhook. Just to test things, I also add a manual trigger. Then we connect to Airtable, where we store the incoming data. After that, we send a response back through the webhook, saying something like, "Hey, we've received your request. Thanks, we're on it." Let me show you how that looks in Postman. Postman is a free tool that developers use to test API endpoints. It lets you simulate requests and see the responses. Super handy for making sure everything's working as expected before going live. Alright, as you can see in this illustration, we're working with 3 API endpoints in N8N. The first one is a POSTI request, where we send all the book details to N8N. Over here in Postman, you can see what that looks like. We include things like the book title, subtitle, and the tone, which helps set the mood or feel of the book. In this case, it's a children's storybook. We also specify the illustration style, the target age group, and the number of stories we want in the book. Then we give it a file name so when it saves to Google Drive, we'll know exactly which one it is. And finally, we add an email address where we want to be notified once the book is complete. After sending this request, we get a response that basically says, "Okay, we've got it and we're working on it. But this could take a while, sometimes up to an hour." Since we don't want to just sit around waiting for that first call to finish, we use a second endpoint to pull N8N. It checks in with a book ID and asks, "Hey, how far along are we?" N8N keeps replying with, "Still working on it until the process is complete." Once we get the status done, that's our cue. Now the book is ready. At that point, we send a final command to compile everything and fetch the completed book. Okay, let's hop over to Airtable and take a look at the database structure. In Airtable, we've set up a database with 3 tables. One for books, one for stories, and one for characters. In the books table, we store fields like the title, subtitle, art style, tone, age group, story count, file name, the recipient email, the document URL, the final book content, the introduction, the conclusion, and a status field to track progress. In the stories table, we include a book ID to link each story to its corresponding book, since this table will handle multiple books. We've also got the story title, an image for the story, the image prompt, in case we want to customize it, the actual story text, the core theme, and again, a status field. And finally, in the characters table, we have the book ID to link characters back to their book, and a list of the character names. That's the basic layout, simple but powerful enough to keep everything organized. Earlier I mentioned that I always start with the back end before moving on to the front end. Well, for the sake of convenience, and because the back end is already done, we'll be recreating that part shortly so you can see how it works. In the meantime, I'm going to kick off the front-end development. I'll show you how to turn a setup like this into a SaaS product, that's software as a service, something you can offer to others for a monthly fee. And for that, you'll need a clean, user-friendly interface. Now, if you're not a programmer, don't worry. This is exactly how we're going to tackle it step by step. Alright, so for the user interface, we're going to use Replit. I'm on the free version, or maybe the trial. But for what we're doing here, it's more than enough. Once you're on the Replit website, just log in using your Google account. Add your name and last name, choose Personal Use, select the free plan, and click on Start Creating. From there, it's really straightforward. You can start crafting your prompt right away. Now, I'm switching over to Prompt Boss, which I mentioned in a previous tutorial. In there, I'm explaining the process, basically the same way I just explained it to you. I'm typing everything out and telling Prompt Boss exactly what I want ChatGPT to do. If you prefer using your own ChatGPT instance instead of Prompt Boss, just make sure to be as detailed as possible. What I usually do is include an example of the API call. So I paste in what the input looks like, what output I expect, and how the process should work. In this version, we're also setting a bearer token on our API webhooks, because we don't want this to be open to the public. That token will be part of the prompt too. And just a quick reminder, once everything is up and running, make sure to swap out all the temporary tokens you used during development before going live. So yeah, I'm just walking ChatGPT through exactly what we need, giving it a solid example, and letting it build a detailed prompt for us. Alright, so now I've created a detailed prompt, but copying and pasting from this format is a bit clunky. So what I'm going to do is ask it to convert the prompt into a markdown file. Okay, that first attempt didn't quite give us what we needed. So let's resend the request, but this time we'll specify that we want a raw markdown file that should make it much easier to copy, paste, and reuse wherever we need. Alright, so what I'm doing now is pasting the prompt into a plain text editor, something like Notepad. From there, I'm going through and trimming out anything that I know a language model doesn't really care about. Things like the project scope, the framework we're using, or even the title, those don't matter much for this step. Instead, I'm focusing on the essentials. I keep the core elements that describe how we want the app to look and feel. Most importantly, I make sure all the API details are crystal clear. That part is critical, because when we build the front-end app, we want it to hook into the API correctly, without any guesswork. So I'm simplifying and streamlining the prompt, keeping only what's truly needed to get accurate and useful output. Alright, now that we've got a prompt we're happy with, I go ahead and copy it. Then, we head back over to Replit, paste it into the prompt input, and click Start. From there, Replit gets to work. It starts crunching through the prompt and begins building out a project plan for us. Once that's done, Replit will present you with a list of assumptions it's making about the project, like what kind of layout or features it thinks you might need. Take a moment to read through the list. You can add anything extra you'd like, or just leave out the things you don't need. Usually, these suggestions are pretty solid right out of the box. After that, just click on Approve Plan, and Replit will start building your application. This part is actually really cool, because as it creates the UI, you can literally watch it come to life in real time. I always find it fascinating to see how it lays everything out and gives the front end that polished, professional look. For a production-ready SaaS application, you just keep going down this path, asking it to add things like authentication, a login page, user settings, and all the extras that make it fully functional. But to keep this training short and focused, we're going to leave those features out for now. Alright, now back in N8N, let me walk you through the workflow. In our school community, I dive much deeper into this, documenting each step and explaining exactly why I do it this way and how everything fits together. So if you're serious about this and looking to make money online, this is a great place to start. Now, the first thing that happens is the webhook receives the request and sends us the information. As soon as that comes in, we store the data in the database as our starting point. Right after that, we immediately send a response back to the application saying, "Hey, we got your request, and here's the ID of the document we're working on." This way, the front end knows exactly what's happening and what to do next. Alright, to demonstrate this, I'm going to disconnect everything first. Let me quickly disconnect the manual trigger. Actually, you know what? Let's leave that in for now. So at this point, the post request comes in, it saves the data to the database, and it immediately sends back a response. Now, when we switch over to our application, you'll notice it looks a little different. That's just because it's now published. It hasn't duplicated anything. Alright, let's go ahead and create a new book. We fill in all the necessary details. Click on Create Storybook, and you'll see it goes into a pending state. That means the process has started, and the system is now waiting for the next step. Let's take a look in N8N to see what's happening behind the scenes. Alright, as you can see, the Create Storybook webhook was triggered successfully. It received a title, subtitle, tone, and all the other required information. We simply map those fields to the corresponding columns in the Books table in Airtable, and then we set the book status to In Progress. Right after that, we send a response back to the webhook with a message that says, "Okay, here's the ID of the new record that was created, and it's currently in progress." That's how the front end knows it needs to keep polling, checking in periodically, until the book creation process is complete. Then over in Airtable, you can see our new book has been added to the Books table. The status is set to In Progress, and as you can see, there's no introduction, no conclusion, or any content yet, just the initial information we've received so far. This is our starting point, and everything else will be built out from here. From this point on, I'm going to pin the webhook and the Create Book node, so we don't have to keep filling in all the information each time. This saves us a ton of time, and also helps prevent duplicate entries in the database. To pin a node, just select it and press the P key on your keyboard. Easy as that. Alright, now I'm going to plug the Respond webhook node back into the workflow, and we'll run it through from start to finish, end to end. Let's see the whole process in action. Alright, so after we save the book to the database, the next step is to fetch all the existing stories. We do this to get a list of story titles, which we pass into the research leader. This helps ensure that we don't accidentally duplicate any stories from other books. We always want fresh, original content. Next, we check the characters. We grab the list of character names and also feed that into the research leader. This way, we avoid reusing names and keep every book's cast unique. Now, the research leader doesn't actually write the stories. What it does is generate a title and a core theme for each story. In this case, I've set it to create 2 unique stories. These act as a creative brief that the story writers will follow when generating the full stories later. Next, we save the generated story titles to the database. Once that's done, we kick off the story writer agents. Since we requested 2 stories, 2 separate agents will spin up, each working on one unique story. After writing, each story is saved back to the database. Then we generate image prompts for each story. Again, those prompts are saved to the database. The reason we keep saving everything along the way is to maintain persistence. That way, if anything goes wrong, we can adjust the workflow and pick up exactly where we left off. No need to start over. After that, the system extracts the characters from the stories and stores them in the characters table. Then it writes both the introduction and conclusion for the book. Finally, it begins creating the images, one at a time, waiting between each to ensure the process completes smoothly. Okay, now over in Airtable, you can see that our stories have been successfully created, each one with its corresponding image. You'll also notice that the characters used in both stories have been extracted and saved. For the first story, we've got 4 characters, and for the second story, there are 2. Fantastic! Everything's coming together just as planned. Alright, now let's start our check status hook. And remember, our front-end app is still polling in the background. Let's give it a moment. Ah, there we go. The front end has successfully polled the workflow and received a status update. Everything's marked as successful. If we jump back into the app, the book is now marked as ready, and you can see both the download link and the OpenDocs link are available. Okay, let's take another look at Airtable. If we check the book record now, you'll see it has both the introduction and conclusion filled in, and the status is set to Done. That means the book has been fully created, along with all its stories. The final step now is to call the Compile Book endpoint. This will stitch everything together into the final document. Alright, let's kick off the workflow again, then switch over to the front end and click on Download. As you can see, it's now converting and compiling everything. It'll generate a document URL once it's done. After that, you can go ahead and download your brand new book. From there, it's just a matter of doing a bit of final formatting and reading through the stories to make sure you're happy with the result. In my version of this, and what you'll get access to in the community, we use carefully crafted, intricate prompts to ensure the stories are 100% safe for kids. That means no sneaking out behind parents' backs, no lying, and definitely no questionable behavior. We've spent countless hours refining and filtering the prompts to eliminate anything I wouldn't want my own children exposed to. A lot of generic LLM-generated stories include things like kids wandering off alone into the woods, but with this workflow, that kind of thing simply doesn't happen. It's built to be safe, wholesome, and kid-appropriate from start to finish. And once you've got the book in Google Docs, it just takes a little fine-tuning, adjusting the formatting, picking a font and style you like, and you're basically done. All that's left is to add a cover, and then you're ready to publish it to KDP. Using this method, I managed to create a full book on cryptocurrency in just 2 days. Normally, it takes me anywhere from 3 to 5 weeks to produce a book, so this workflow is a massive time saver. I don't even bother with a front-end or web interface. I just use an N8N form and connect everything into a single flow. Let me show you what I mean. If I remove this, break the connection on the email node, then disconnect the webhook and plug that into the load book node, and finally connect the email node to the end of the webhook, the entire process wraps up nicely. I'll get an email with a link to a document stored on my Google Drive, ready to access. So, if you're not planning to run this as a SaaS and just want to use it for yourself, this is a super simple and efficient way to go about it. You can jump over to our community to grab the template from there, and if you want someone to join you on this journey to start your automation business, sign up and become a member. This exact same workflow is what I use to create children's storybooks, prayer books, and similar content, and it works fantastically for that. But the beauty of it is, you can easily modify and customize it for any niche you like. I even have a version where I plug in a research agent. So instead of writing a fictional story, it goes online, does deep research on the topic, and creates a book based on real information. Pretty cool, right? Thanks for sticking around to the end. If you found this helpful or it sparked some ideas for your own automation journey, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps more productivity enthusiasts discover these time-saving techniques. Until next time, keep automating the boring stuff. I'll see you in the next video.